Welcome to lesson 7140, inverse sine function. Here's our vocabulary. So now what I want to show you is that the sine inverse this is the inverse of the sine. The inverse of the sine of some ratio, of some number, will give you an angle in degrees or in radians. So this will give you an angle. An old word for the inverse sine is called the arc sine. You don't see this anymore, but you may see it in older books. So I just wanted to point that out. Arc sine is the sine inverse. On the calculator, you're going to hit second, sine, cosine of tangent. The cosecant, the secant, and the cotangent are not on the calculator, but I believe in a previous video I showed you how to put that in. When we get to it again, I will show you how to put that into the calculator so that you can get those values. Okay, so here are notes. What's important to note is that on the interval from negative pi over 2 to pi over 2, positive pi over 2, when we have y equals sine x. When we take inverse function, x becomes sine y. So when y equals sine x, we get a graph that looks like this. Okay, so your range is from 1 to 1. Your domain is all real numbers. When we invert it, your domain goes from -1 to +1, and you can only take from negative pi over 2 to positive pi over 2. You can't go above that. So the thing inverts. The graph of the function inverts. And finally, the graph of the inverse sine function looks something like this. This is positive pi over 2, and at the bottom is negative pi over 2. It comes up, it goes through 0, and then it comes up, and it's like that. So this is this, or the sine inverse of x. These equations amount to the same thing. Or in some books, arc sine of x. And you get this by hitting second sine on a calculator. Okay, so let's look at some examples. Again, A. When you say the sine of an angle, that gives you the ratio of side lengths. When you take the sine inverse, you get the side lengths, the opposite over the hypotenuse, or the opposite over the radius, and you will get an angle out. Which is pi over 6, or 30 degrees. Now, we're primarily going to be in radians, so make sure your calculator is in radians. If not, hit mode button. The mode button is next to the second button, and go down. Make sure radians is highlighted, hit enter, then hit second mode to get out of there. B, the sine inverse of negative root 3 over 2 is going to give us a negative pi over 3, or a negative 60-degree angle. It's the same thing. Remember, you have to remember where the sign is positive and negative. Because we're in quadrant 4, you could have went the positive, but we went the negative way. And I could have did it in either way, but we just went. When you do this in the calculator will only give you quadrant 1 and quadrant 4 angles for the sine. For the cosine, it'll be in quadrants 1 and 2, I believe. But we'll have to see that when we get one of those questions. So for value C, the sine inverse of pi over 2. The sine inverse of pi over 2. Pi over 2 is like 3.14. It's 1.70 something. It's 1.7. I can't remember the rest of it. So because this is bigger than 1 and negative 1, this does not exist. And this is going to be important when we get in the future, when we talk about the law of sines and the law of cosines. So for D, the sine inverse undoes the sine. The sine over pi over 9 inside of here gives you a ratio. The inverse sine gives you the angle back. So you're just at pi over 9. Pi over 9. Remember, the sine and the sine inverse undo each other. And for E, the sine inverse, the sine of an angle is a ratio. The sine inverse of a ratio gives you an angle. And the calculator will give you pi over 6 because the calculator will give you the sine in quadrant 1. Okay, so use a calculator in radian mode to evaluate these inverse sine values. So let's take a look. A is going to be the sine inverse of a ratio, negative 0.81, which gives you a number in radians, negative 0.944, rounded to 3 decimal places. We should probably go to 4 decimal places. Let's just go to 4 just to be safe. So remember, this is a angle. The inverse sine, this is a ratio. That's a ratio. That is a fraction of the solid lengths to each other. The inverse sine takes a ratio and turns it into an angle. This is an angle in radian measure. You don't see the pi because this is an irrational number. So just be aware of that. Okay, for B. We have the sine inverse of 3.49 times pi, which will give you negative 1.5394. And this is an angle. There's no pi because the calculator went on hand and calculated it for you. So the inverse sine of a ratio will give you angles. These are angles in radian measure.